another edition of What's Your Story, where I get the distinct pleasure, privilege, and true joy of meeting people who have overcome challenges, adversities, and really stepped up and made their challenges into their purpose. I met Ash a while back, and since then we've stayed connected. He's been on another show of mine and just really had a lot of insight around using our energy to help us in our finances. So, Ash, why don't you introduce yourself to the community and then let's get this party started?
Okay, hey guys, my name is Ash Shukla. I'm founder of Financial Chakras. I originally came here from India with 20 bucks and no English. I grew up here in Maryland. I ran into financial services in 1994. I was in bed. I was pathetic when I started. I had to blackmail my dad through my mom to get the first sale in the door. And eventually, I was managing over $300 million. And then I started my own company. I basically retired, let go of financial planning after 27 years. And I have been doing coaching consulting since 2008. I've received a congressional honor for my work. So that's my flag that got flown over Capitol and sent it
Oh,
to me
that's
as
cool.
a yeah, so as a special thanks. And then and this is my book, Sell Like Crazy. So my friends, I'm here to help entrepreneurs and businesses, and I've helped over 5,000 entrepreneurs, and I've taken several entrepreneurs over $1 million in revenue. And my wish is very simple: is to help you either accumulate $1 million plus wealth or build $1 million plus business. My wish.
Super easy. So, let's start from the beginning. So, what prompted you to come here from India? Because I always am so astounded at the bravery that it takes people to leave their homeland and start over in a new country.
Well, and that's a good question. So thank you for that. So it was actually, my aunt. So the way the visa process works, official visa process, right, works is that my aunt applied for us in 1981 to come here, and we got our visas in 1989 on September 4th, 1989. So that was our flight date here. So we actually, so my dad at the time was working for a government, and he has always been in the government sector. And he was making like 3,000 rupees a month, not much. It's like 50 bucks,
Yeah.
and but that being said, as time has gone on, so we were on a very limited salary, limited budget, limited everything. And my mom and dad had saved up like 80,000 rupees or so. And right when we were coming here, government offered us, like, so if we used to live in a government quarters, like what they call like up condos, right?
Yep.
And basically, so obviously housing was subsidized at the time. And then what transpired from there was my dad had saved, like, worked so hard and saved about 80,000 rupees, and he was offered a chance to get a land and a house, for that price. But at the same time, we had the opportunity to come here. And so my dad chose to sell everything and, come here. So
Wow. That
that's
takes so
basically
much
how
courage.
yeah, and the opportunity is huge, right? So it was no doubt it was a really best thing that we could do,
Yeah.
with the money.
So your dad worked for the government and still made 3,000 rupees, which, translates to 50 US dollars. That's crazy.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
translates to $50 US. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you land in America. How old were you at the time?
I was 16 when I came here.
Okay, so that's like a really transformative age for you to
Yeah.
come from one country to another.
Yeah.
How did you acclimate to American society?
I mean, I acclimated. Look, so do you want to hear stories?
I
To be
love
fun.
this is what we're
Okay.
here for, Ash. Do
Yeah.
it.
So this is, thank you for asking the questions, by the way. This is really good.
I love
And,
this.
and thank you for having me. Like, look, I've been with you one time, and this is my second time, and I absolutely am loving it. Okay. So that being said, so when we came here, right, me and my brother, I was 16, my brother was 14 at the time, you know, and what transpired from there was the fact that we couldn't speak English. It was like hi and bye, right? So like, on the plane, so everything started with the plane ride, right? So in the plane ride, like, we get into the plane it was beautiful. It was like, oh my god, a dream come true, right? We
Yeah.
get into the plane, it was so beautiful, like maroon carpets, beige sidings, absolutely gorgeous. And then the plane wouldn't start, like, so until it took like 4.5 hours, right? So imagine this, we are the first family members coming to US, pretty much from an immediate family, right? And so, and my grandparents and my aunts and uncles, they knew they weren't going to see us for a long time.
Yeah.
So finally, we had gotten our visas, and we were at the Mumbai International Airport all day. Our plane wasn't until at night, but we got there like early in the morning, to make sure we don't miss the flight, right? So we are outside, and it's not like, you can go in a hotel or whatever. We were literally with luggages outside. We got on a train, got in the and then got to the airport, in one way, shape, or form. Then, we were standing outside of the airport, literally the whole day in a hot summer, right? Like, you talk about it's hot. It's
Yeah.
Mumbai, it's Bombay, it's hot. Okay. So then what happened was, we get into the plane was supposed to take off, plane doesn't take off, and we're like, okay, so we bow down to our relatives and we say our final goodbyes, and because we didn't know how long it was going to be before we were going to see them back. And none of us can speak English. It's like hi and bye. There was like beginning end of English. Okay.
Yeah.
So we got into the plane, and then plane was supposed to take off at 9, doesn't take off. And then it's at 10 o'clock, 10:30, 12:30, 1 o'clock. The plane is not taking off. And then they said there's technical difficulties they're trying to solve. I'm like, okay, that must be a good thing, I guess. They have to they have to solve that. So then at 1:30, finally, because by this point it's hot in the plane, it's
Yeah.
muggy, it's Mumbai International Airport, nothing is really working. And then at 1:30, plane takes off. We get to the London Heathrow, and we're like, oh my god, it's so gorgeous. Ooh, it was such a gorgeous airport, right? We had never seen anything beautiful like that again. This was our second beautiful experience. So we land, and I'm like, look, I have to go to the bathroom, guys. Like,
Yeah.
I gotta go, right? So I'm looking for the restroom, and I see this door opening, closing, opening, and everybody going in there tense, and then they're coming out really happy. I'm like, that must be a nice place, like, it must be a VIP room or something, okay? And then an Indian person comes over, and he asked me. I asked him, and he helped me out and all that. And then I go to my dad, and he's struggling at the ticket counter, and he's saying something, and the ticket counter person is not understanding, and that fight is going, that whole misunderstanding is going on. Then a Indian lady comes over, and she helps us out to get the vouchers. And for the first thing she told us is, you missed your connecting flight, and we are
Yeah.
like, oh no, right? Because it's $20 each, four of us at the London Heathrow Airport, and no English. So that was basically the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
And then we go downstairs to eat because we are hungry. So we go into hotel to eat, and she happened to be in the same hotel, so she came down by accident, and she helps us get a salad, spaghetti, and a bread roll. And that happens, and that whole thing happens, and I'm like, look, I'm hungry. I've never had grass before, but I'm gonna go for the grass. So I go for the grass, right? It was horrible. And then I go for the spaghetti, which was Kung Fu Panda type spaghetti. And I try to eat the spaghetti. They were plain noodles. Okay. There was nothing in those stupid things whatsoever. And I'm like, man, this American people must be sad. This is sad. There's nothing in here. Like, what the heck's wrong with these people, right? And then I'm like, okay, fine, fine, we'll deal with this. So then I go for the bread, and I bite the bread, and I could not bite the bread because it's English soup roll.
Oh
Right?
God. Yeah. They're hard.
They're hard. So we couldn't eat that. So we went to bed hungry, and then we made sure we got onto the next flight in the morning. And then me and my dad, we were having so many dreams. We're like, oh wow, this is so exciting. We are finally going to America, and we're gonna have a car and a house, and the dreams. Okay.
Yep.
We land here, we go to my aunt's house. Okay. And the second day we go to school. Okay. To get us
Wow. Like 2 days in.
like literally next day we got admitted to the school, and all, like, my uncles and aunts, they were ready. So
Yep.
we go to the school, local school. And I'm like totally amazed by the school, right? I was so fascinated by the experience. It was
Yeah.
such a beautiful experience for me. And so I go into the school, and I'm looking at the school, and I'm going, it was such a big school, because in India the schools are like, you have upstairs and downstairs,
Yep.
and it's literally, if you can imagine, flat like this, right? And they're
Yep.
just stacking on top of each other. So there's like, you go here, go up the stairs, go up, and then it go back down. Like there's literally
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
that's it. Like the classes are like literally flat, right? You can see like classes, and that ends the school, right? So
Yep.
so that being said, in India, like, teachers came to you, and so, when we came here, like, so I go to the school for the first time. I'm like, I'm so excited. I got my backpack, and I'm like, I'm ready to roll. Like, let's do this. So I go into school with my brother, because I was a senior back
Yep.
home. They held me 1 year back because of English. So I got into the ESOL, English as a second language, and all these
Yep.
things. And my brother, and he was in ninth grade.
Yep.
Ninth grade. So they held him accordingly, because he studied in English medium over there.
Yep.
Even though he couldn't speak English, but at least he studied in there, so he understood a little bit. So they kept him in the ninth grade, and they put me 1 year back. So I became a junior.
Yep.
Okay. Now the class, the fun stuff starts, right? So we go into the school, we go into the class. I'm like, okay, first thing is like, first time I remember his name was Mr. Smith. He's like, look, I'll help you out. So first time he sent somebody to drop us off. So okay, we go into the class, and I remember, I still remember, like, my first teacher, Miss Wallstein, and she was speaking, and she was like, yep, 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 and all I heard was yep, 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 yep,
Yeah.
yep, 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 and that's what you hear, right? Because I couldn't understand what she's saying. I heard, like, what the heck, what is she talking about, right? And then she's like telling us all these things, and then the bell rings. Okay, and then the bell, I'm like, what the heck just happened? The bell rings, and I see all these people running around, right? They're going here, there, and everybody's running. Teacher is running, kids are running. I'm like, huh, what's going on? So they're like, you have to
This
go to your
had to be
class.
a comedy of errors for you. You're
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
this
So
is
I'm talking about,
crazy.
like, the school is square, and it's got a whole bunch of classes, and you got to run around all over the place. And I'm going inside. I'm going, what do we do? And they're like, you have to. Somebody told us, one Pakistani, and like a brother sister, right? So they said, you have to go to your class. So okay, so they left. They told us, and they left, right? So we are like, okay, now what the heck are we doing, right? So then we are me and my brother, we are like, okay, we are just like, looking and laughing, and that's all we could do, because we
Yeah.
couldn't do anything else, right? So
Yep.
Miss Watson talked the whole time, yep, 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 and all we could do is just laugh, right? It was just nothing else we could do. So then we are like seeing all these people run around. We're like, what the heck's going on? And then finally somebody told us that you have to change the class. I'm like, what? You have to change the class? What are you talking about? Like, I'm in this class. I'm right here. And first surprise to me was like, me and my brother, we were in the same stupid class. I'm like, how could that be? I'm in 11th grade. He's
Yep.
in 8th grade. I'm in ninth grade. How could that be even possible? It didn't even make sense to me, right? But I'm like, okay, brother is with me. I'm kind of like, we're both feeling comfortable a little bit, right? At least we have each other's company. And then every day, I kid you not, like, once we figured out that we had to change classes, like, once we understood that,
Yep.
okay. I mean, the first day we were like running around, like, up and down the hallway. Everybody's in class, and we're still trying to find the stupid class. Where's the class? What are they talking
Wild.
about? Because the numbers, the hallways, like, everything is different for us.
Yep.
And it was such a it was complete comic experience.
Yeah.
But yet so memorable, right? Because I think that a lot of times business owners feel the same way. They feel lost, you know
Yeah.
to be truthful, right? And to me, that was like a fun, most like fun time in the initial stages, right? Because
What
it
could
was
you
it was
do?
just a starting point of
Yeah.
our life. It didn't define who we are today, but it was definitely, I mean, I think that I would not replace that with anything else, to be honest, because it was just so much fun.
Yeah. Well, I think about and you highlight, business owners feel that way too, and that's true. I think the difference between your experience as a teenager and business owners, we take life entirely too seriously now. And I think
Yeah.
that it's important to bring an element of curiosity and openness to whatever unfolds, because in that unknown is opportunity that you wouldn't have otherwise expected, or that you could never prepare a plan for.
Yeah, and what the funny part is, Carrie? The funny part is that every time somebody spoke to us, because we didn't know what the heck they're saying. Like
Yes.
we zero clue, like zero. Because the extent of my English for sure was hi and bye,
Bye.
and that was the
Yep.
end of that English. Like, don't tell me anymore. I have no idea what you're saying, right? So they would talk to me, and then they'll be like, they'll talk to me, and they said, do you understand? And as Indians, we like to say yes and no
Yes.
almost in the
It's
same way.
always
So
yes.
I'm like, yes and no. And they're like, what the heck you talking about? Yes and no. I'm like, yes.
Yeah,
And
and
then,
having
you
no
understand?
idea. Oh my
No.
god.
You understand? Yes. You understand? No. It was so funny. So
Oh
then
my god.
what happened, my friend, was that as time is going on, we're having all this fun, right? And then what the first, like, it was like first week in the class, because I was curious about like learning English, and Miss Watson was really nice to teach me, to bear with me, to help me understand. And I asked a question. I said, okay, I'm understanding a little bit. I understand a couple of words now. So I have a question for you. What do you call, so I showed her like pictures of like pots and pans.
Yep.
I said, what do you call this? And she said, it's a dish. Okay. Then I showed her like a pot. Like in India, we have a name for it, right?
Yep.
I said, what do you call this? She's like, it's a dish. And then I said, so then I showed her a different kind of like like a ornament, or food, whatever thingy that it's like a, not a bowl, but shoot, I can't even say it now. But but that being said, like, there's a different name for different pots and different pans, pretty
Yeah.
much, right?
Yep.
So I'm showing her like different things, okay?
And she
And
kept
she like,
calling it a
it
dish.
is called like a dish. And I'm like, okay, but what do you, I said, when you in India, when people come to our house and we don't want them, right? Like, if they're thief or so, I was trying to explain, right? I mean, if they're thief, we use this to beat them up. Like, what do you call that? She's like, oh, you mean the pan? I said, yeah. Okay, so that's the pan, no problem. Then I said, okay, so what do you call this? She's like, this called pot. I said, okay, now we're getting somewhere, right? So then I showed her other things, and she kept on calling it pots and pans and pots and pans and pots. I'm like, then what the heck is the difference? In India, we have name for everything.
Yeah.
We got name for
Really?
everything, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. We have name for everything. So what do you call this? Then I asked her, okay, fine, fine. I understand that's called pots and pans, and that's called dish. No problem. Okay. You know, then I said, okay, I said, okay, a bird. I showed her like a sparrow, and I showed her like a dove and different birds. Okay. And I said, so what do you call this? And she said, it's a bird. I said, I understand. But what do you call that bird? She's like, it's a bird. And what do you call that bird? It's a bird. And I'm like, what the heck
All the
is
birds
wrong?
and birds.
It's all birds. Like, you have aunts and uncles, grandmothers and grandfathers, right? You have brothers, and then cousins, okay? But they don't have names. In India, we have names for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, and they call it just very simple, like, it's so simple. Aunts and uncles. I said, what do you call mom's brother? Well, uncle. What do you call dad's brother? Uncle. What do you call your mom's sister? Aunt. And what do you call dad's aunt? Aunt. And then what do you call aunt's aunt? Aunt. And what do you call dad's brother? I mean, brothers, or let's say, your friends, your dad's friend's brother, or
Yeah.
dad's friend's whatever, right? Uncle. And I'm like,
That's yeah, I could see where that would be really
I'm
confusing.
like, what in the world are you talking about? They have to have. So in Indian culture, like, we have hierarchies, right? So
Yeah.
it was that's where the confusion was. I'm like, wait a minute, like, I don't know what you're saying, but okay.
Yeah,
You,
so let me ask you with that hierarchy. So with your mom's sister, what would she be called? And then what's the difference between her her place in the hierarchy and then your dad's sister's place? Or
okay.
is it
So
equal?
there are different names. There are different names for it. So
Yeah.
dad's sister is called Foy, Foi, Foy.
Yeah.
Okay, and mom's sister is called Kaki, meaning aunt. Okay,
Yep.
so you have total differentiation, even though they are both technically. I understand now they're called aunts, right?
Yep.
But there's a differentiation,
Yep.
because hierarchical differentiation. So that way, when we say let's talk to your Foy, we know who it is. Okay,
Gotcha.
when we know let's talk to your Kaki, we know who it is. So there's a complete differentiation between the two structures, if you will, right? So that helps you identify who you're talking about.
Wow. I'm gonna
You know,
ask Nana, my boyfriend, if in Ghana they do the same thing, because I would be very curious. I've never even heard that before.
yeah.
Okay, but so you get through school and your dad starts to obviously become successful because
Hey, can you imagine they gave me a driving school?
at 16.
Yeah, I was 16 and they gave me a driving school, driver's ed, right?
That
You
had to
know,
be fun.
I'm thankful, you know, that I knew one thing. If I don't know the answer, answer C. So I answered C, and I happen to pass. Okay, but that being said, okay, they had a stimulated driving. I was so much. It was so much fun to do a stimulated driving, and it was so much fun to get through that class. I'm like, thank God there are signs. I can understand signs, right? Green, red, left,
Yep.
right. Much easier to understand than it is for me to like read the stupid book, about different things.
Yeah.
So that was difficult. It was a fun experience, and I was the first one to get a job in the house, right?
Yep.
So it was fun for me at the time, and it was a lot of work, but it was worth it. Like and I was walking like almost 2 miles to work, back and forth. We didn't have a car at the time,
Yep.
and so it was fun. I mean, it was a cool, really cool experience. And I think lots of times business owners don't give themselves chance
Yeah.
to have fun along the way. They forget, like, it's okay that they're going through whatever they're going through, but it's a journey.
Yeah, and they've got to have fun. If you take it so seriously, you're gonna quit. It's too hard. So let's fast forward. Like, so you talked about you were like pathetic, like you weren't working. Talk to me about, a little bit about your journey into realizing that you needed to do something different.
Okay, so I was studying computer science, and I was going to college, and minoring in math at the time, and then I ran into financial services in around '94, and it was pretty bad, right? I mean, I was like, I love it, I love the idea, I love the idea of I can go meet people. At the time, I was working like three jobs. I was working at Montgomery Wards, Luskins, the cheapest guy in town, and third job I had picked up was a resume, kind of a person. So anyway, so these three jobs, as I was working on these three jobs and time was happening, I ran into financial services, and it turned out to be like a really beautiful thing for me. I'm like, I love it. So I go into it, at 21. I mean, what do I know, right? So I didn't know a whole lot. I didn't even have enough clothes to like, show,
Yeah, dress up and
dress
present
up,
yourself that
present
way. Yeah.
myself. Yeah, none of that was that, right? So you talk about frequency, just wasn't matching. Like, I
Yeah.
just didn't have the frequency. So it really became so I started doing, I got on this journey of like self-help and really applied myself into the world. And I was going on appointments, okay? And as I was going on appointments, and like I was calling, like cold calling people, literally like some of my dad's friends or whatever. And I was saying, hey uncle, like, I need to come over and I want to show you something, that kind of thing. And then once I ran out of that, I started doing cold calls to all Indians, any Indian I can find, in the yellow pages, and the scripting was very simple. Hey uncle, my name is Ash, and I think you know my uncle through my dad through this temple, and there was only two temples in town, so it has to be one of them. So
Yeah.
I just didn't know which one.
Yep.
So yeah, you know them through this temple, and they're like, yes, I know him. No, I don't. It didn't really matter, right? And then I would set appointments, and that's how it started. But
Yeah.
it's ironic that as time went on, those are the uncles who at the time didn't do anything with me, and I was pathetic. I could not close anybody for 6 years, my friend. And
6
those were
years.
6 years it took me, right? And it took me a long time to get licenses. It took me like 8 times to get my life and health license due to
Wow.
English barrier. Same thing with investment licenses and all that. But it took me time to get my stuff.
What kept you so persistent? Because a lot of people, when they face adversity like that, they quit.
I mean, I'm just a very, very tenacious guy. Once I put my mind to it, I really don't like to just give up,
Yep.
you know. And I'm generally pretty. Look, I like being, it's just who I am, I guess. I
Yep.
don't really like look at it as a. adversity, because it really wasn't, right? It was a pretty simple issues, because my life and health exam, like I remember the first time I took it, I got like 69 and I needed to get 70. So I'm pretty close. I mean, not that bad. Second time I got 68, third time was 67, fourth time was 66. And I was making in the
A
right
steady
direction.
decline.
Yeah, I was, no, I was in the right direction. I was headed in the exactly the direction I should go in. And then I'm like, okay, I gotta do something. So around fifth time or so, I'm like, okay, I have to do something different. So I actually sat down and memorized the entire book word for word. And I'm like, I can't miss this time. So I went the fifth or sixth time, and I got like 68 or something like that. So I was getting better again. So it was back on the upswing. Okay.
Yep.
And then I thought, I at one point I heard O.J. Simpson trial, and then there was a word that I learned, prejudice, and I'm like, okay, that computer must be prejudice, right? Or that guy outside or girl outside who is sitting, they must be pressing buttons, they must be prejudice or something. So then I decided to get really smart, and I changed the center that I was taking the exam in. I'm like, in case it's one of them, I need to,
Yep.
like, I need to make sure my odds are working in my favor. So I said, okay, here we go. So I go for the seventh time, and I go at that time. I was pretty proficient at the exam. I kind of knew like what was going to come, right, to some degree. And then I go to DC to take the exam, and I got 69. I'm like, wow, I'm so close. I can feel that, right? And I'm like, I'm like, what the heck's wrong though? Still. So then finally, I got somebody told me that I needed to, as an English as a second language, I can get extra time. And the real problem was I wasn't able to finish it, because
Ooh, yeah.
I had a minute and 20 seconds to read the question, understand it, and then answer it, right? That made it very difficult for me,
Yep.
extremely difficult for me to, to do something. So that actually literally like caused an issue for me. And then once I understood that, and once I got that extra hour and a half I needed, I pass. But
I love
sometimes the
that.
smallest things you don't know, like there are some what unknown factors, right, that we
Yeah.
don't know about. But I
Yep.
really wasn't discouraged. To be honest, I was just going about it the way I should. I mean, I knew that I needed to make it for sure.
Yeah. I'm curious, did your parents support you going into the financial sector?
Um, yes and no. It was a mixed bag. So, initially my dad was excited that I have something else, if you will, even though he's like, make sure college and all these things, it's just an Indian thing to do. But that being said, I loved it. Like I was like, oh my god, because by that point I had gotten into self help, and I was so like advancing in that field, and I had gone to like Tony Robbins, so I had drank that juice,
Yep.
Tony Robbins juice, I call it, right? And but as a youngster, it was necessary. Like it was
Yeah.
necessary at the time. The message he delivered was so crucial. And then, and then I got the brightest idea to spend $500 a month at that time when I didn't have a whole lot of money on this guy, on this coach from Tony Robbins, right? Thought he was going to transform my life, and he did to some degree. Okay, I have to give him credit. His name is Brad, and I never forget him. Right, I'll get on the phone with him on almost on a weekly basis or whatever, and he was available to me and all these things. But that kickstarted things, right? So like it wasn't that I needed the motivation, but what I did need was guidance on the right direction.
Yep.
So that kind of was like, from that point of view was good. But for me, the biggest thing I think is, my dad and mom, especially my dad, I would go home from appointments because they said do 6 to 8, I mean 8 to 10 appointments a week, and you can be multimillionaire in the financial world. At least that's the saying, right? And so I said, okay, in the financial world, I'm like, that's the saying, and that's what I'm gonna do. Okay. So I was doing like 8 appointments a week, constantly. I would drive all over the place. Back then, we didn't have Zooms
Yeah.
or any other technology. So I would go and literally go to all these homes on a weekly basis, and I would not close anybody. So every time I go home, my dad is like, "So how'd you do today?" And I'm like, "Fantastic, Dad, amazing. That was great today." And so he's like, "How much money you made?" You know, I said, unbelievable. It was amazing, Dad. So, and then I didn't make obviously any money, right? So, because I didn't even have licenses at the time initially to make any money, even if I could close, I couldn't make any money.
Yeah.
So that was it was pretty bad, in terms of that's kind of finally I did get a license, and it still was that way, right? I was, going on appointments and couldn't close anybody. So it got to a point where my dad started doubting, and everybody was almost like beginning to compare, because a lot of my cousins were doctors or other things. So comparison started happening.
Yep.
Okay. And it does play a role in your
Psyche.
psychological psyche if you're not careful. Okay.
Yep.
Had it not been for the mentors and self-help around me, that would have been difficult. My biggest mentor was my grandfather, I'll be honest
I
with you.
know, yeah, and I wanted to touch upon him because he really is the foundation of your current business, correct?
Absolutely. If we like, he really played because I was born, and my mom had a postpartum depression, so I had to go to. I mean, they put me to my grandparents' house, and I grew up with, and I was the first grandchild in the house, and they were really excited. I have two aunts who I truly adore, and so they were all raising me, while my mom and dad were just trying to take care of my mom's health, and so that became a really stepping stone for me. And then my grandfather really was there for me in every step of the way, and he helped me with everything. Like we he helped me understand, like from a family point of view, to business, to finance, to spirituality. We talked about a lot of religions and spiritualities, and we talked about Vedic science, and we talked about all kinds of stuff, right? So he
Yeah.
played a major role in my life in many ways.
Yeah, I love
So
that so much. So, okay, is there a turning point in which you started to gain traction and success, like a pivotal moment when you started to close deals where you were like, "Okay, I got this."
yeah, yeah. So here's what happened, right? So I had taken by that point, I had learned every single closing technique you can imagine. I love Tom Hopkins. Like he was one of the greatest salesmen in my opinion, and he sold like a lot of homes every year, right? According to his numbers, is I think 400 homes a year.
Wow.
Normally, realtors cannot close more than like four. Okay, so good sales guy, and then he was training. He was having sales training at the time, and I am like, okay, well, you know what? I mean, what do I got to lose? Let's learn this. So I read his book, and I learned all the closing techniques, and but nothing was working for me. Okay, and then around I want to say around 2000 is when everything just kind of fell into alignment, because by that point I had heard of pretty much all the self-help gurus like Jim Rohn or Brian Tracy or pretty much everybody, and
Yeah.
I had a whole bunch of cassette tapes, right, that I had purchased and all that. And then I decided to internally travel and say, okay, what would I do? How would I make this journey if I am advising me and I'm coming on to this? And I really started understanding my energetic centers and understood what the process I would follow. And I created a process, and it started working slowly but surely. And I was like seeing some results from it. So I'm like, okay, it's encouraging to see this.
Yeah.
That and of course, granted, I was I was being groomed, right, in many ways. So I constantly went back to my grandfather. He was obviously my main influencer in my life, and then I also went to all these other sources that I because he didn't have a sales knowledge per se,
Yeah.
or business knowledge. So I had to go to some place if you want to get that, and I had gone to some of my mentors. So that accumulation of all that really helped me get awakened and say, okay, here's how you should do it. And then I finally found my rhythm, my
Yeah.
process, and that's when things started to tick up.
I love that you shared that. I think it's so important for the community to take away that point is that you absorbed incredible amounts of knowledge, and that's not a good thing because I, like you, am very similar. And yet it wasn't until we went internal and created a strategy that works solely for ourselves because we are unique at the end of the day. And if we're applying an external process to anything, it's not authentic. And people
Yeah,
smell that from a mile away. And but the minute you're okay, I feel good about this because it's cultivated from in me. Well, now your energy feels different, and the way in which you encounter people feel different, and success is basically guaranteed because
yeah,
people read that.
yeah. And don't get and don't. I think the funniest part was, I mean, even at that point, my English wasn't as strong. Like, it just was. It was at best like I understood people at that point.
Yeah.
But if I had to, like, write a sentence and make sure that it's grammatically correct, wasn't gonna happen.
Listen, Ash, I guarantee you probably write better English than me. I'm just saying, and I'm
Okay.
totally fine with that. Right? Because again, you and I talked off air, and I truly believe like we all just do things differently. But when you embrace that and you accept that, then it works. When
Yeah.
you do things differently, but you judge yourself or you compare, well, that's not going to be the magic sauce, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so talk to me about how you had to kind of go around your dad's back to blackmail him to support you. I want to hear
Uh,
this story.
so it was my first time, right? So I was like, okay, Dad, I just got licensed, and I need to, I needed to prove to my office that I could do this, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this. So I go to my dad and I ask him. He's like, no. It was literally like, no. It wasn't even like, let me think about it. It was like, no, not gonna happen. So then I'm like, okay, Dad, no problem. So then I went to him second time, and then he's like, yeah, but it's somebody he knew, we knew actually as a family, had given him other contracts, if you will. And he's like, yeah, no, no, that contract is better, no. you know and then I said, but Dad, just hear me out, like, no, no, not gonna happen. Okay. And then I'm like, okay, you know what, this train is not gonna move.
Yeah.
I gotta do something. So then I told my mom, I said, look, I need this sale, and I need to make this sale for me to, like, move the train forward. And Dad is making me, like, he's being the unlucky star in my in my way. Like, what can he do here? So she started the process, right? I started the process, and then as time goes on, and then he's still like, no, 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 that kind of thing. And they went on for like a month or so. um and then finally I'm like, look, Mom, it's happening. I need to do this. And look, Dad is being like really unfair to me. How horrible Dad he is. And he's not even giving me the sale. Like, what's wrong with him? you know what's wrong with him? And I created this big ruckus in the house for no reason. I
Yeah.
did it on purpose, but it was full disclosure, I did it on purpose. But I needed to get the sale done. It was that simple. I just had to get the first sale in the door. Like, I didn't get how I got it done. I had to get it done.
Yep.
So I was like, literally. So I said, so then I got my mom all, like, set up for that. And basically, like, that's how I blackmailed him. And then I
Yeah.
told my grandfather, I said, look, what kind of son do you have? Like, he's not giving me the sale. Like, would you do that to your son? How could you do, like, tell him, how could you do, how could you do that to me? you know I'm the first one to get a job in the house. I'm the reason we got a house in 1 year, we because I supported him, and he's not giving me a stupid $500 a year sale. Like, it's
Yeah.
not even that big of that much money, right? And he's not giving me that. And because he wants to keep it with his other friend or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then my grandfather got on him. And then I also routed up my grandmother. I'm like, look, grandma, and because I'm the favorite, right? So I'm, look, grandma, look at your son. How horrible. He's the worst person I've ever met. you know I cannot believe he's my dad, actually. Like, I just wish he wasn't even my dad. I just wish that he was, like, at this rate, he might as well be some uncle that I know that says no, and I'm okay with that. you know so, like, here, go do something. So they all got on him, and that was my blackmailing technique, my
That is
dad.
so funny. I
Eh,
bet he was happy in the long run that he went and worked with you.
whether he happy or not, it doesn't matter. I got the sale done.
So
But listen, he was very happy. Honestly, he was very happy, right? But at the end, that gave me the jumping start, and I to this day I thank my dad for that, right?
yeah.
I thank my dad for jump start, because from there I helped my very first client. I
Yep.
helped him save, I think, $50,000 a year. And I'm talking, this is 1994, 95, like
Yeah.
after 95 or so, right? And that guy every year thanks me, say, because of you, I'm saving $50,000 a year, right?
Yeah.
And then I have helped clients after clients, and then, so you need a jump start at some point.
You
Okay.
do. Yeah.
You need a jump start. Okay.
But
Now
I
I'm
do
not.
believe I think that, I don't believe in luck. I believe in preparation meets opportunity.
Oh,
And that's what I
absolutely.
tell people. Like, yes, what I love about your story is you were persistent, right? And you weren't giving up until you got a yes, but you were also prepared. You had gone through and set yourself up to be successful so that when your dad said yes, you would be able to actually meet his needs rather than just expect him to do this thing. and
Yeah.
and that is really important for the people listening, because uh, uh, oftentimes people want a quick fix, or they don't want to put in the effort, and that's just not the way it works. And more than that, me being in the mental health and addiction recovery field, those quick fixes are the reason people suffer, because we need to go through adversity to show ourselves just how strong and capable we are to do harder things and to grow and expand. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. All right. So then you're super successful and you retire, and then you're like, hey, I'm bored one day, or
No, actually, what happened was in my journey, because I was with banks. In between, I got into banks and all that, and I was a pretty good, from a advisory point of view, I was managing good amount of money, and I was working actually right in front of the White House and Treasury.
yep,
So like I was managing good money, in terms of as an advisor. So um, you know, so that being said, I was managing like over almost $300 million, and then the at the time I was studying to become a analyst. So I said, let me just upgrade my skills, and so I was like going from home to DC, which was it's a nightmare,
yep,
to go in a train. So I had to leave like around 5:30 in the morning to get to DC around 9 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock, because of traffic and all that.
yep,
And then by the time I got home, it was late night. And then it didn't give me time to study. So I started my own company in '04. Built that successfully. Like first year it was April 2004 is when we bought the house.
yep,
April 23rd is when we moved in. April 24th, I left my jobs and then I started my own company. And I did my research for about 6 months or so, so until about August. And after August, I started to '04 to I started just doing my thing, okay, basically. And I was having fun. I made good money. I was doing pretty well. But in '07, and because it was new community I had moved into, and all that, and then somebody that I knew very closely, scammed me. I lost a lot of money.
wow,
And 2008 had hit at the same time, so it was like a two double whammy.
yep,
I actually cut down my marketing from the financial services side, and I actually took a different route on the financial services side, and I doubled my business. So I was hurt internally, so I went to my grandfather at the time. He helped me out, align myself, and then I actually ended up reviving it and literally double my business. But in the meantime, I had decided that I was going to go do speaking engagements. And I go to speaking engagements. I found this guy. I went to a networking event, and somebody told me about that. So I go to this guy. His name is Russell, and to this day we are good friends. And they're like, he's with the Small Business Development Center. You should go there. This that, and the other. So I go there, and we clicked right away. Okay,
yeah,
and at the time, and he's like, I would love for you to come in and talk about your story, how you built a multi-million dollar business and so forth. And I'm like, okay, sure. With 20 bucks and no English. And I said, sure. So I thought I was going to get financial planning clients, but that's not what happened. Right. So I speak on the stage, and then I get my first person come over and they're like, can you help me? I own this such and such business. She's a minority business owner. And she's like, can you help me with this? I'm like, sure. So so I said, okay. She wanted to learn on do some sales, and her company was going under. She's like, I really need to make this sale. Like, what would you suggest? And I wasn't expecting that. Like, it was not my. I thought people were coming over to learn financial planning from me, but that's not what happened. Okay, so anyway, so she came over. She helped asked me for help, and literally in 4 days, I helped her get win a contract for $50,000. And she's like, I want to thank you. You saved my dad's company. And then eventually she went on to building a pretty big organization. And she always got help from me. But I didn't know that consulting was a thing. Like
yeah,
it wasn't in my radar, right? But Boy, did I loved it. Mm, it was like absolute most yummiest food you can possibly serve on my plate. It was the best thing ever, right?
It
So
is.
it was the best thing. It is the best thing. So I spoke. I thoroughly enjoyed speaking. Like I didn't enjoy it. I was so happy, right, when I spoke. I mean, it was about 200, 300 people. For the first time, I was nervous. I was actually originally going to talk about Mount Everest and how business and that applies, but I was never going to climb that thing ever. Not going to happen. Okay, I'm very clear about that. So then I created a brand. I said, okay, what would I do now? Now I'm not going to talk about that. I got to do something. So then I came up with a brand, and I with Ash's Cash as a brand, and you know, and I'm
That's
like,
cheeky.
yeah, it was cheeky, but it's so memorable. Everybody
It
remembers.
is.
Yeah, so that happened. It was just so much amazingly, like, it was so much fun for me to get
Yeah,
on that stage and just have a good time, right? And that carried on, and that started my consulting. That I was not expecting.
yeah,
There was zero expectation that it would go that, like, it would be received in that way. And I'm so thankful to this day to Russell and to the colleges that I spoke at, and the crowds, and they had fun with me. They did whatever I did. Like, I had some dances. I did some Indian dances. They danced with me. I did some
yeah.
American dances. They did that with me. And then it was just the craziest experience. And I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool. It's much better than financial planning. I absolutely love it. Even though I was growing financial business,
Yeah.
I love that more. So then you become split. It's like, okay, you are doing this. I like it as a career. It's a great move, but I love this,
Mhm.
right? And that's what makes it difficult to transition. How do you transition from that?
Yeah, because it's leaving good to better. And I mean, think about it. You had a great role model because your dad, at the time when you guys were given the visa to America, you got to witness him being offered, right? Good. You get
Mhm.
house, you got this, or better. But better, there's more risk. And that's
Yeah.
where most people get hung up. They're like, I don't want risk, so I'm gonna stay with good. But then their life becomes apathetic and they don't experience what you and I have been able to achieve, which is that, like, when you say consulting, I know that feeling. It's just like, oh my, like, you can't describe how good it feels to do the thing you do. And then secondly, what I love that you shared and I want to highlight to the community is that you, like, just in that example highlighted preparedness with opportunity, because how many people would have been in your same situation? That lady came up, oh, well, I don't do that, so I'm going to say no. And in that, people close themselves off from opportunities all the time because it doesn't look and feel like they think it should look like, and so they don't do it. And that's why I tell people, curiosity is your greatest gift. At
Yes.
least try it. If you don't like it, don't keep doing it, but you'll never know if you don't try, and you've got to try to know what you like and what you don't like. So that's so beautiful. So then, with just a few minutes left, financial chakras, the reason I love, what your business is called is you talk about alignment, right? And you shared with me that your grandfather was a huge influence and he's from India. Obviously, I've studied theology, world theology. Can you talk about how you apply, like, um spiritual, or at least, practices that feel really good for you personally into your business that helps create that strategy that sets people up to succeed?
Yeah. So for me, look, it's very clear, right? So first thing is, okay, look, you have to be balanced. In my opinion, you have to balance in 5 areas of life, right? So health, relationship, business, finance, and spirituality. Now, that being said, spiritually speaking, okay, we do prayers every day. Being in Indian household, we have temples in our homes and stuff like that. So we pray every day. So that's there. But now the question is, how do you bring that to business? That was the main thing that I was really shooting for, because initial first 6 years, the reason I struggled was because I was not applying. I mean, clearly, from my dad's example, that's not spiritual whatsoever. Okay, that's called blackmailing, and I clearly did that. Okay, just so
Yeah.
you know. it was literally I blackmailed my
I'm
dad.
so
So
glad you highlighted that. I didn't have to.
yeah, you know, it was clearly not spiritually aligned.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, real quickly, I can't. I just read a quote yesterday, and it's so true. It's how can you go and pray? Like if you go and pray, and
Yeah,
then don't bring any of that like energy and that spirit into your everyday life, going and praying is obsolete. It means nothing.
yeah, yeah. And it was always fun for me doing that, right? And then we all laughed about it with the whole family, right? So we
Yeah.
had fun with that. But like making sure that you stay in alignment. Like if you say that you're gonna, like I'll give you an example, right? Recently, somebody came to me, and then they're like, they want to serve the community. They want to serve their community. But then when you hear them, all they want to do is they want to talk about how can they make money, right? And the reciprocity is always going to be there, right? It's
Yep.
a mirror. So what you're looking at is a mirror. You're looking at how can I make money, and the other person is also saying how can I make money, meaning profit to profit, right? it's,
Yep.
it's a mirror. So energy everywhere, like energy is the frequency is going to match, right, in one way or the other. So when frequency matches, attraction happens.
Yep.
Just like my first 6 years, frequency wasn't matching, so
Yep.
attraction wasn't happening, and that's okay. That's the way it is, and it's okay, right? I struggled, to say the least, okay, because I couldn't understand how to align myself with others. But once you understand that, and once you know that, okay, energetically, you must give, 10 times more than what you're going to receive. And that's the hardest thing for most people.
Yep.
It's the hardest thing for most people is to give, because you are thinking, how can I get?
Yep.
Energetically, you have to give it. And for me, I had to open up every 7 energy centers in order for me to really get aligned with every person that I met, because sometimes you meet really intellectual people, sometimes you meet really talkative people, sometimes you meet very heart centric people, other times you meet very grounded people, right? Sometimes you meet people all the way on the left, they have a very different way of thinking, and other times you meet people all the way on the right. And you as a business owner, as an individual, as an entrepreneur, or as a being, how to get into understanding as to how are you going to get along with everyone,
Yep.
but who is going to be your core that you can flow with ease, and who is your signature, who has your signature that's just like you. And that's an important piece, because not everybody has same intent or same signatures, right?
Yep.
So they have their lane, so think of them like different lanes, right? You're in your lane, and you have to learn how to stay in your lane and find that. And that's how you find peace, because otherwise you'll always be jumping from lane to lane,
Yep.
or from a personality to personality, if you will. And you're trying to serve every single personality. Even gods couldn't serve all the personalities,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
So
and,
basically,
and you're so the law of reciprocity, absolutely right, and you're 100% right. When it is some zero ideology, you're always going to lose because
yeah,
we're a collective and we are meant to be of service. And
yeah,
so I, like you, how I show up for people, I give 110% of myself regardless, because even if I don't get it from that person, I know it's coming back to me, and that's okay. And I think again, it goes to that idea that it's not going to look the way you think it should look, but it will work out in your highest good when you come from being genuine. And yeah, it's cool to make money. Everybody's here to make money. Be honest about it. I can't stand when people are like, oh, it's not about the money. Well, that's bull crap, because we all need to make money.
yeah,
I'll tell you it's about the money, but I genuinely am offering you a service that can it will go far beyond the investment that you're being asked to make into what I offer, right? So,
exactly, exactly. And as long as you know that, and I think a lot of times what happens is, um you get misalignment, because like initially, you don't have everything,
yeah,
right? But so even with me, like first few years I struggled because of that reason. I
yeah,
struggled because I didn't have enough to offer, right? More than what they were requiring to offer. That's why I struggled. And that's on me. That's got nothing to do with the world or anybody else. and that's okay, right? And I think that happens to us throughout the time. I mean, I was just reviewing somebody's material, and they are like, they're brand new. They came over into my VIP mastermind, and they're like, "Can you?" I'm so excited. I'm pumped. And they are into what do you call this? Sports. Okay, and so this person was a basketball player, and then so he comes and he's like talking to me, and they're excited about coaching and consulting, especially in the life coaching arena. And we discovered that let's go into after a certain market. Okay, but they send me the PDF, and then they send me the what of this video, and they're like, I feel like I'm not ready. I don't know why, but internally, the reason I'm saying this is because when you're not ready.
Yep.
You may not have to say that. You may fake it till you believe in the process of fake it till you make it. You can't.
Yeah,
I
it's because it's an energetic exchange, which is why I like that you say financial chakras, because whether people believe in like a chakra system, at the end of the day, we are energy and we're magnets, and we're going to attract what it is that we put out. And honestly, if you're faking it, that's a low vibrating energy. And so guess what you're attracting? Low vibrating energies. It's never going to work. So,
Yeah, and like, whether look, somebody who's listening and they don't believe in chakra system, that's okay, because the fact is chakras are there with everybody, right? So that's the fact. So, but the question is, how are you flowing with them? And I think a lot of times flow is not discovered, right? It's more of like, okay, even if you don't know, so either you don't know or you do know, and you don't know how to create your own flow. And I found that once you find that flow that you're looking for, you're in so much at peace, you're so much at ease, you have abundance is there, and you know exactly how to acquire it, and that's what makes the biggest difference.
yeah, I love that so much. All right. Well, with like just 2-3 minutes left, is there anything you want to leave the listening audience with, like impart any wisdom that could help them move forward and flow?
Okay, so first of all, I want to say thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate you, and I so love you very, very much.
I
And
love you too. You're
thank
great energy. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. Oh my god,
and
you're
I feel the same way, my friend. So thank you so much for that.
yeah,
To the audience who's listening, I just want to say thank you so much, and I love you guys as well, my friends. You guys are amazing, and I just want to let you know, so to win, and to win big. Okay, make sure you sit down and get yourself aligned with the right people and places that you really really want to go to, and always. Number one, I know what people say, get people to like you and trust you. BS, throw it out the window, put it in trash. Okay. Number one thing you must do is you must get people to fall in love with you. You do that, the rest works itself out. Okay. So people always go with emotions first, then they go to logic, then they take action. And if
yep,
you remember just that little bit that I just gave you, right? They don't go to logic first. Okay. Forget about all the other stuff about liking and trusting is all about logic. Forget all that. Get them to fall in love with you. You do that, you will create your being, and you'll be able to go further faster, and in height, like you cannot even imagine what the heights are. Okay,
yeah.
and
And
that's what I would suggest.
And I'm going to add one more thing. Before you can get anybody to fall in love with you, you got to love yourself. So, anybody out there who's like, how did Ash do it? I mean, his whole story is beautiful in that he had a sense of self from an early age. That's what I took away from you, because to be able to laugh in school as a immigrant who can't speak English, I mean, that takes a lot of inner confidence. And so, if you're struggling with inner confidence, work on that, because the rest of it actually does come easy. When you love yourself, people will love you. Until next time, guys, I will have Ash's information in the show notes. Please feel free to reach out to him. He is a beautiful soul and lovely to talk to, and he offers, a mastermind for business. But he's just a really good dude, and I'm honored to know him. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you on another episode of What's Your Story.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you, and love you guys so much. And be sure to visit my site. And I would welcome you to come to my community, Financial Chakras community. If anybody wants to come, Carrie, they're most welcome to come. And most importantly, my friends, I'm really happy to serve you, Carrie, and your community. So those of you here, I just want to say thank you, guys.